Hello everyone, today we'll be going over section 5.7, linear models. Your homework for today is 5.7 on page 189 and do all the even numbered questions. Okay, after you finish, you should take photos of your homework and then upload them to Teams. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what linear relation or linear model is. If you have an equation with two variables, then that equation is used to describe the relationship between two quantities. So for example, my first example here shows the relationship between my cost and the number of hours of renting the machine. Okay, so the two quantities then will be the cost and the number of hours. So let's start our first example then. Question A, if you have $8, how many hours can you rent a machine for? So if you guys notice here, on the horizontal axis we have here, it says number of hours. And the vertical axis here, it says the cost. So $8 will be the quantity on the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis. So I want to find $8 on the vertical axis. And so what is $8? $8, well, each unit here is 5. So $8 is about somewhere around here, almost $10. So if you guys look at the graph here, the minimum you need to have is $20. If you only have $8, then it means you can't rent the machine. You can rent 0 hours. Okay, you will need to have more than $20 to rent the machine because that's the minimum you need. Okay, now second question, how much would it cost to rent a machine for 3 hours? Now, 3 hours is the quantity on the horizontal axis, number of hours. So we'll find 3 on this axis. So between 2 and 4 in the middle here, that's 3. So this is 3. Okay, and you can see that 3 is here. For 3 hours, the corresponding cost will be here. This is the corresponding cost for renting 3 hours. So that's 35. Okay, so each number will have a corresponding, each of the x value, each of the horizontal value will have a corresponding vertical value. And each of the vertical value, of course, will have a corresponding x value as well. Okay, so once you know what the question is looking for example, this case, the question is looking for 3 hours. You can find 3 hours on the horizontal axis, and then the corresponding point on the graph will have a y value here. That's 35. So 35, then the vertical quantity is the cost. So we know for 3 hours you need to have $35. Okay, and last question, what does 6 and 50 represent? Okay, 650 is the order pair that's right over here. So this point, and what does this point represent? This point says that you can rent for 6 hours. and on the vertical axis it's 50. And we know for the vertical axis it's the cost, it's the price. So 650 will just represent that it will cost it cost $50 to rent the machine for 6 hours. Or you can say if you want to rent the machine for 6 hours, it will cost $50. Okay, that's our first example. Okay, now second example. It says the cost of renting the skating rink for a birthday party is $150. And there is also a charge for each person who is invited. So if one person is invited, then it's $2.50. If you've invited two people, then it will be $2.50 times by two, because it's $2.50 for each person. So if I let C be the cost, the total cost, and let P be the number of people, then what will my equation look like? Well, I know the cost will include this one, the $150, and $250 for each person. So I know the total cost will be $150 and plus $250 times by P. 250 times by P. So the cost will depend on the number of people that's being invited. Okay. Create a table value and graph the relation. Okay, so right here I have the number of people, P, and we want to find the cost. Remember what we did on Friday last week? The C is unknown, but we know P is the number here. So C will equal to 150 plus 2.5 times by P. Now we're calculating for the first row here. So this is when P is equal to 0. So let P equal to 0. So then C is equal to 150. Well, that makes sense because when there's no one invited, you're only paying for renting the rink. You're not paying for any extra fees for the people you've invited because you've not invited anyone. Okay. So when people is 0, then you've invited, oh sorry, the cost is 150. What about when P is equal to 1? Well, it's 150 plus 2.5 times by 1. This time P is equal to 1. So that's equal to 150 plus 2.5 times 1 is 2.5. So that's 152.5. And you can calculate each of them. So P equals to 2, C is equal to 150 plus 2.5 times by 2, which is 155, etc. I'm just going to fill that out. You guys should be able to do that now. 157.5 and 160. Okay, so now we're going to graph this relation. So the order pairs for each row is 0, 150, 1, 152.5, and then 2, 155, 3, 157.5, and then 4, 160. So to draw a graph, you will need a title for the graph. So let's make the title be cost of renting versus the number of people. And then instead of the x-axis and the y-axis, let's just change them to x to be the number of people and the y to be the cost. So the number of people is our input value and the cost is our output value because the cost depends on how many people there are, right? So our input values are like the x values, which will be the horizontal value, horizontal quantity, and the output values are the y values, which will be our vertical quantity. That's why people's are the horizontal axis and the cost is the vertical axis. So I'll let each of the smallest unit be 10. So then that will be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 40, 60, 180, 200, 220, etc. So the cost has a unit of dollars, and this is number of people here. So, and I'll let number of people, I'll let each unit be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each of the bigger units, so 2 of the small units, 7, 8, 9, etc. So let's graph it. Well, actually, I'll let each of the small unit be 1. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, etc. Okay, so let's graph them. I have my first order pair is 0, 150. 0, 150 is right here. 1, 152.5. 1, 152.5. That's a bit hard to draw. It's about here. And then 2 is 155. 2 is 155, so right in the middle. And then 3 is 175.5. And 4 is 160. Okay. Well, like that. And we could have more datas. If you plug in people equals to 5, 6, 7, etc., you'll be able to find the cost for 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, etc. And with these points, if we connect them, it should be a straight line. Oops. You need to use a ruler. I don't know how, it doesn't work as well here. Okay, that's good. Okay. So the last question is how much would it cost to invite 22 people? If your graph is accurate enough, then you can read from the graph. Okay, so the number of people, 22 people, number of people is on the horizontal axis. It's right here. So if I want to find the corresponding cost, then I will need to find what point it represents on my graph. So this. Okay, it doesn't, but my graph is not that accurate, so it's very hard to read it's very hard to read from my graph here. I'll just say it's like 250. Sorry, 205. About 205. So this is from reading the graph. But what you can also do is you can plug in 22 into the equation. We know this equation is correct. 22 is the number of people. So P is equal to 22. And our equation is 150 plus 2.5P. And if you want to calculate the cost for 22 people, then we should just plug in P into the equation. And you can find that. So C is equal to then 150 plus 55, which is equal to 50 plus 50, 150 plus 55 is 205. Well, which is, well, even though my graph is not that accurate, but my reading is kind of okay. I got the same thing from the graph and from the equation. The equation is obviously more accurate because you're working with numbers, but the graph sometimes could be could could be not that accurate because when you draw the graph, it might be off a little bit sometimes. So whenever you can use an equation, better use an equation because it gives you a more accurate answer. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Please let me know if you have any questions.